We're here this evening with Eric Rothoff. He's running for Muskegon County Treasurer. Eric, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for County Treasurer.
Well, I graduated from Michigan State University with 2 degrees in international relations and computer science. I went overseas where I worked as a missionary and created a company that did telephone directory service like our Yellow Pages and a small ISP. Then I came back and started a nonprofit to investigate waste, fraud, and abuse in local government. In the process of viewing that, found out some of the things that was going on with the land bank and how we are selling our current tax foreclosed properties, and decided that I needed to run for county treasurer to try to correct the problem.
Tell me what your vision of the county treasurer's office is.
Well, the county treasurer has a few functions. One of them, the one that you don't see hardly at all, is they're the banker for the county. They take care of the bonds, they make sure all the money is taken care of, where there's cash on hand, where they invest the money, but they have to make sure that the money's not lost. That's a part that no one sees what goes on, and we have good experts watching there, and Muskegon County has not had a problem with losing its money, unlike North Shores and some of the others that have not been as good at it. But the other issues is what has upset me and why I'm running. One of the things that the county treasurer does is they act as the foreclosing agent on all tax foreclosed properties. It's their job to, after the first year, to try to collect the taxes, and after 2 more years, if the taxes aren't paid, to then foreclose on the property and then try to sell the property to reclaim the taxes. Most counties make money at this. The roughly $7.2 million that we have in the bank for the jail is some of the profits from this. But the way that things have been run in the accounting, there's also not been enough made so that the cities and the townships and the schools have had a lot of chargebacks where they've actually lost $1.4 million in property taxes because the county pays, after the first year, advances the taxes. But when it doesn't sell for enough, they turn around and take that money back. And what's happened in 2010, they bundled 48 properties together and required that anybody purchasing that property had to put up a $5 million bond to that you would demolish every building on every property, all 48, within 30 days. Of course, no one purchased it. All 48 properties went to the land bank. Land bank and the cities and townships and schools got charged because the taxes weren't paid because no one billed on it. Then the land bank turns around, sells the properties. They made $320-some thousand on it, while charging the cities and townships, I think it was like $157,000. I'd have to look what it was in that one there. 2011, we had a combination of another bundling together. This time they didn't have the requirement of, in the paperwork I could not find that they had the requirement for the $5 million. But there was another bundle, I believe it was of 50 properties that no one bid on. And they withdrew 5, maybe 7 properties that they took before the auctions for the land bank. And of course, again, when everything was sold, there was not enough money, and the cities and townships were again charged because they did not make enough money to pay for their taxes. And again, 2012, they didn't bundle any together. But instead, I'd have to look at the number. I want to say it's like 14, 18 properties that they took. And over 50% of those properties they have already sold. Mind you, the second auction is only in October. No, September.
I believe the first auction was in August and the second one was in September.
Yeah, right. Second one was in September. And they've already sold over half of those properties because they take the best properties. The property is more likely to have people bid up higher on it. And what they do, when they take the property, they take the minimum, just the taxes due, and then haul it to the land bank, and then all the profits stay in the land bank. And actually, just a week and a half ago, Tony got an award for having one of the best land banks because they made the most money.
And when you by Tony, you mean the present county treasurer?
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't it make more sense to take a property that's tax reverted and put it up for the minimum bid auction, which covers all the outstanding taxes owed, plus interest, fees, and penalties? Then if somebody bids on it, bids it that amount or better, they end up owning the property. If they don't bid on it, then go ahead and put it up for the no bid or no minimum bid auction that comes up usually about 30 to 45 days later. And then after that, if nobody buys it at all, then and only then should the land bank be able to get its hands on it. Wouldn't that make more sense?
I would say you actually read the law, because that's actually the way the law states. Right now, Kent County is in a lawsuit because they're doing similar to us, taking the property ahead of time. The law actually states for land banks, it cannot be transferred to the land bank until after it goes to the two auctions. No one has sued to challenge that the way that they're doing it now. So they continue to do it.
Well, I would think that if the public official, regardless of who the public official is, that's blatantly breaking the law, that they could be held responsible for it, and it probably could be something that would be other than a lawsuit. It may be in conjunction with a lawsuit, or even just standing alone, because there's certain things we expect of our public officials, and one of the things that we always expect is that they're going to follow the law as it pertains to their particular office.
Well, if you ask Tony, he says he's following the law.
Has anybody asked the county corporate counsel for his opinion on that?
They have. I have not heard in particular. I know it has been brought up, and various county commissioners said that they've reviewed it and they think it's legal.
Well, wasn't the land bank a creation of the legislature in recent years, maybe the last less than 10 years?
I'm not sure exactly when it was state. It was Tony actually that created it here in Muskegon. And what here is a joint intergovernmental agreement between Muskegon County and the state land bank. And that, I want to say, started 2007. It seems to me the first properties they started selling was about that time. So whether they created 2007 or 2006, I'm not exactly sure. The other thing about that time is the county actually started doing the tax foreclosures rather than the state, which, if done properly, we do a much better job than what the state does. I don't deny that. The problem is we can do a whole lot better job than what's currently being done. I mean, if you look at any of the auctions, you have pictures that is over a year and a half old on the auctions. And they did put on the disclaimer that the buyer beware, you have to investigate it. There's one house that in the auction, they had a really nice picture, a year and a half old, and the house had been burned. The whole center was gutted out. They turned around, sold it to somebody online from Colorado. That person, without ever coming, turned around and sold it on eBay, tripling his money. And that on eBay was sold, I think it was October 14th or October 15th. But because they don't do any checks, they use, my understanding is they use the pictures that they take when they give notices trying to collect the taxes. They don't go right before the sale and reevaluate and do current pictures so people know what they're getting. They don't care. They think it's all the buyer's choice, and if the buyer gets messed up and doesn't get what they want, it's their fault.
Well, isn't the group that actually does the actual auction a private company that the state contracts with to handle the tax foreclosure process? And wouldn't it be their responsibility under the terms of their contract to let people know the day of the auction what exactly it is they're bidding on?
I don't think so. I know the county is the foreclosing agent. They're the ones that does the foreclosures, not the state. So I can't see the state having a contract. Now, Muskegon County does contract with a company that does do the auction for quite a number of different counties. They get paid, I believe, 5% of the gross sale to do that. But they're doing that on contract to the county. So ultimately, it's the county's fault, not the person that they have doing the job.
The land bank, is that something that can be handled with the treasurer's current employees? Or is that a situation where somebody has to be hired to handle just the land bank?
Well, you got the board that's made up of various government officials right now, or former government officials. And then they have an administrator who gets paid, I believe it's on a commission of what's done at the land bank. And problem with land banks is land banks, the way a lot of times they're done, they have to approve the sale. So you can say yes or no to any person. For example, the land bank turned down one bid in which in their minutes stated it was because the company was a flipper. They buy and resell, so they didn't want to sell it. Yet they sold 5 other properties to a company that does the same thing.
Well, it sounds to me like these land banks statewide are something that are set up from a standpoint of perhaps good wishes and good intentions, but in the analysis that I'm hearing from you, in practice, not only in Muskegon County, but in other counties, they simply don't work. Wouldn't it be better just to go ahead and abolish the concept of the land bank and set it up the way it was years ago, to where the property would come up for auction, and after nobody bid on it, it just turns into an over-the-counter sale, to where within any time after the last auction, if nobody wants the property, then a set price is put on it, which usually is less than what the outstanding taxes, interest, and penalties are, and just let it sit there available for purchase if, as and when somebody walks into the treasurer's office and wants to buy it. Wouldn't that make more sense?
There's a lot of problems with the land bank. There's various grants you can get being a land bank. You can work with brownfield funds and other things if you have a land bank. So there is advantages to having it. That being said, everything you talk about, if the land bank is doing properly, could be exactly what you're talking about. You only take the properties after both auctions. Then the land bank takes the property. They try to do what the land bank is supposed to be mandated on, is improve the neighborhood. So they could then demolish the houses or refurbish the houses. When a piece of property is sold from the land bank, they get 50% of the property taxes for the next 5 years, which goes back into the land bank. So there's a lot of ways that the land bank can then work on improving the area, which is its mission. Its mission is that just selling it sometimes doesn't work because the price goes too low. I mean, for example, there's a number of houses that went for $150, $300. But a lot of these are houses that were scheduled. I mean, there was one of them, I believe it was $300, that the house that somebody bought that was in the process of being demolished. Now again, the auction had one of the old nice pictures. They didn't see the little clause on there that says, in the process of demolition. The city of Muskegon had already sent the contract to demolish the house when the county treasurer sold it. The city had asked the county, please don't sell it. We want to demolish the house. It's no good. But they wanted their $300, so they sold it.
Well, this sounds to me like it's a situation where we're getting government that, even though it usually comes across with good intentions on the off the starting line, before we get to the finish line, we find that the horse never makes it, and usually it ends up stumbling and falling and twisting and turning, and the intentions that were good at the beginning end up being non-existent and not even noticeable at the end. Isn't this a situation where this could be done better without the land bank? And one of the things I'm also thinking of is that for the free enterprise system to run properly, everybody should be on an equal footing. And when the land bank cherry picks, even after the auction, then unless it really has a plan for the properties it's taking, it really shouldn't be taking them. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement, but a free economy requires three things. It requires self-interest, which generally we don't have a problem with. It requires complete information, which we don't have. And it requires a number of people that are interested in the free market. Both in the regular auction and in the land bank, there's not enough information. People can't make an informed decision. The argument is, well, buyer beware. Well, you should provide as much information as possible to help the buyer, because the less risk they have, the more they're willing to pay for the property. If there's a huge risk where you got to go and check it all out, well, then you're either going to get fools that are buying it, or you're going to get only those people in the know that knows where to go and which ones to get, and they're only going to get the ones and leave the others for the fools. And you got to have a lot of people there, which, particularly with the land bank, with you not having the information out there, not letting real estate agents work on it at all. Because none of the real estate agents will touch anything in the land bank because they don't get a commission off of it. You go to a foreclosed HUD property, you go to a foreclosed FHA property, they work with real estate agents. Real estate agents get a commission on it, so they will help try to sell it for anybody looking for a house. But because the land bank doesn't do that, the only people that come to the land bank are those people that know what's in the land bank. So again, you've got that small group of people that buy the houses.
And you said earlier, too, that the land bank can refuse to take an offer for whatever reason it deems appropriate.
Yes.
Even without giving a reason.
Yeah. I don't know if I can say without giving a reason. That I haven't read the bylaws on that one.
Now, you mentioned earlier that what Muskegon County has done in years previous was bundle a whole group of properties together, say 50, 75, 100, whatever.
Never 75. It was 48 in 2010, and I think it was 50 in 2011.
Now, I've noticed other counties do this too. I noticed that this year Lake County did it, and I believe there were some in Genesee County that were bundled, and Saginaw and Bay counties as well. What, in your opinion, is the purpose behind that? Should that be something that the state legislature needs to get involved in and preclude it so each property is sold on an individual basis, regardless of what the motivation and reasoning might be behind it by the local county officials?
I don't know enough about that one. I know, for example, most people tell me they do the bundling for convenience. Now, that's understandable if you got two houses next to each other, one house and one empty lot, bundling those two together. That makes completely sense. The 48 obviously was not. It was houses all over the place. Ottawa County, they actually bundled some properties together because they had docks that had actually been destroyed, so they weren't no longer there except for some posts sticking up. But there was the property document saying it was a dock. So they bundled it together with the land so they could then eventually get rid of the docks because they were no longer there. So I mean, I know there's some legitimate reasons for bundling, but particularly with the ones in Muskegon County, they were bundled all over the place. Maybe there was a reason for bundling them all together other than just getting the properties they wanted for the land bank. But I haven't found that. I believe it was 7 properties in 2010 that was bundled out of that 48. I told you all got transferred to the land bank. 7 of them never went to the land bank's webpage. They were sold without ever being put online.
Well, that would lead me to believe that there were people waiting in the wings and that the whole thing was pre-planned prior to them ever going to the land bank, that these 7 houses had been picked out by 7 different people, supposedly, and they were already chosen to be sold to that individual person without anybody else having any say in the matter, or anybody else having a chance to even bid on them or even know they were available for purchase.
I don't have proof of that in 2008. In 2012, actually, in the minutes of the land bank, they actually discussed having the manager go and contact 2 of the people that were living in the houses and asking them to purchase it through the land bank.
Well, who makes the decisions on this land bank? Is it a group of people that does it? Does the county treasurer sit on that board? How does that work?
County treasurer is the chairman, and then there's like 5 or 7 other people. I know John Snyder, Commissioner Snyder's on it, Commissioner Plummer's on it, but I'd have to look to see who the others are.
Well, how are those people placed on there? Are they appointed by somebody?
They, I believe, appointed. Some of them are city and township elected officials. Some of them are representatives from the county, and I think there's 1 or 2 at-larges that they can appoint as well.
Well, it sounds to me like it's more of a bureaucracy. Let's hop on a different horse for a second. You've got a situation here in Muskegon County where, unfortunately, there's a number of people that are at the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum, and they routinely get into problems with back taxes, and some of them come very close to losing their house. If you're elected county treasurer, what plans would you institute to keep them in their house even though they get behind in their taxes? Is there something the county treasurer can do to help them out, to keep them at home?
Well, first thing is a lot of the city and township treasurers contact and let them know about different programs, because there is programs to help with taxes, but it's generally only temporary. One of the first things that I would change, to my understanding, is that currently the county treasurer, when they send out their notices and that, they contract with another company. The company goes out and does it, not the county itself. I would change that to having the county do it itself. Now, I'm generally all for outsourcing, but the problem is you don't have that personal relationship. You don't have them worried and trying to make sure that everything is done to help the taxpayer from losing their house. Because the best way of making sure Muskegon County and the cities and townships and schools get all their taxes is to make sure that the person that owns a place pays their taxes or get whatever credits to help pay their taxes, and they stay in the house. Once the house starts getting abandoned, it gets harder to keep people in there, things get turned over, people buy it and then try to sell it, don't pay the taxes, and that's not good for anybody. So the main thing, and Ottawa County has actually switched to doing that, and it's been able to decrease quite a bit the number of people that have lost their properties, because with the county going there, they can make sure that all the programs are known about. It's not just you owe it. You have somebody go there, talk to them, and it's not the case where you wait and have them come talk to you. I'm not that type of person that says, oh, I'll gladly help anybody if they come and talk to me. That's not the case. As treasurer, I think the job is to go out and make sure, because I see there's a problem. I see that there's a problem because they're not paying the taxes. So therefore, I need to go out, or the county, or my department needs to go out and talk with them and try to make sure that we can do everything we can for them to save the property.
Well, I noticed that, again, this isn't just a Muskegon problem. It's something that's endemic throughout the state of Michigan. But what can a county treasurer do to stave off this problem? Is it because taxes are too high? Is it because the county economy is just really, really poor? It's, like I said, it's something that happens throughout Michigan. But what can be done so we don't have the problem to begin with? And does the treasurer even have a role in that?
Well, some of the stuff the treasurer doesn't have a role because we don't make policy. We don't provide the grants or abatements or everything else. We can use whatever's available, make sure that they have all the information to use anything that's available. We don't have programs that we can create. We're not the policy board. But the other thing is not most of the places have that problem. Muskegon has that problem. Flint has that problem. Detroit has that problem. Ottawa has very few properties go up for sale. Kent County, they have some properties that go up for sale, but like I said, they sell theirs for a profit. So those that do go back, while the individuals lose, the cities and the townships don't lose on the thing. Which it's sad that the individual taxpayer loses his house, but at least it doesn't get wasted and it still goes to the public on what they lose.
Well, you mentioned earlier that there's a fund balance that the county has of $8 million. That's all profits from sales of the land bank properties?
No, and that's why it hasn't gone back to cities and townships, because after 1 year, the properties are then go to the county to try to collect the taxes. The fine for being after a year goes into that fund. I think it's 1% or 1.5% you pay in interest per month or whatever it is, gets put in there. So all the fines and all the interest for not paying gets added to that fund. Then after that's done, there's a separate fund for when they sell the property.
Well, it sounds to me like those penalties might be a little bit too high to begin with, and that's why some of the people can't afford to keep their house.
That is definitely a problem. The fines in that for not paying are very steep. Unfortunately, I do believe those are stated in statute by state law. So I don't know if the township treasurer or the county treasurer has that ability to change that.
So it's a situation where this is a state-created mess, and that's helping people to lose their houses because of the policies instituted by the state legislature.
Yeah, assuming that it is a state statute like I believe it is.
Okay. Now I'm going to take you back about 10 years ago, and the way the tax foreclosures used to work on properties were that you had about 2.5 years to pay your taxes. If they weren't paid by May, which is basically about 2.5 years after they were due in December, the property went up for a tax sale, and it was literally an auction sale. Anybody could come there and bid on the back taxes, and whatever the amount was, that's what the individual lien buyer bought them for. Then what the lien buyer would do is have to wait 1 year, and they would collect interest on their bid for a 1 year period. If the person then still couldn't pay the taxes, it was incumbent upon the private lien buyer to serve them formal notice of that fact, and then they had an additional 6 months to go ahead and pay the taxes and keep the property. Essentially, it was all in the private sector, because once the tax lien was sold by the counties, they were out of it. And the cities and townships got their money back, and the government stayed out of it, and it was all up to the private lien buyer, if in fact there was one. Should we go back to that system instead of having the system we have now where all the profits from these properties end up staying with the government?
I'm not as up with what it was like back then. I do know from everything that I've heard that it was much harder to get a clean title after something like that, because of the various liens, etc., that it was very hard once it went that far in the process to ever be able to get the house back where it was a good tradable house. That's been brought up many a times, that was one of the reasons why they changed that. And excluding the high fines and fees, I think the county probably should really be the one doing that, because it's a central location. And you don't have to worry about the other individuals. I mean, we still have the auction like it was before. And having the auction is important. Now, whether necessarily we would do what we do now is the English or American auction, or if we would use a Dutch auction, I would probably lean towards trying to do a Dutch auction rather than what we're doing now, but I don't know if I can do that on statute. I mean, you can only look into so many things before you're running. Once I get in office, I'll look at improving things.
Exactly. Anything else you'd like to add that we didn't cover?
Basically, take a look at my Facebook page website, www.rothoff.us. I provide a lot of information on various different reasons on what we're not doing properly right now and why I want to run. And vote for me on November 6th.
All right. Thanks for taking some of your time and spending it with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.